There you go. And we're live. So today we have on Alex Garrett Smith, who founded quotecourse.com. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself, Alex?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Alex. I founded cocourse.com around about 10 years ago now. Before that, I worked as a full stack developer at a startup in London. And yeah, so just basically done that for my entire life, as most developers do. And yeah, that's it really. I feel like I've just spent my entire life writing code.
All right. Well, in this live stream, we're going to go over custom theming in Filament. So we haven't really got anything special going on. If we head into /admin, just waiting for it to load. I'm going to go ahead and run
I feel
dev here as well. So it just runs here.
Maybe I should add the context as
Oh,
well
yeah.
that I am a Filament newbie and I have only used it once to build a very basic admin panel. I've slept on it for way too long. And then as soon as I started using it very recently, I was like, wow, this is great. So this is why I think we chose to do this, because Tilly is so much better at Filament than I am. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm excited to see what we can do with this.
So we have, in this case, an empty admin panel. As I imagine you probably know, there's both dark and light mode. Um, we have in Filament when you create a new app. I think where all of the sort of configuration of your panel happens. That is essentially in here, where we have
Mhm,
this admin panel provider. You could call it something else. It could be called dashboard panel provider, and you can change the URL and the ID and the path.
mhm,
But for the very basic theming, as you can see, there's already the ability to change the color here. So we could change this to, for example, violet. So it just has a bunch of pre-built colors you can choose in here, and a bunch of functions to sort of calculate and work on that. So if we look inside the documentation for custom theming, you can
mhm.
see we have the ability to, for example, go ahead and change the primary success and so on. So if we, for example, we're going to go and take this one from Filament, we should already notice a bit of a different theme to it. If we just hit refresh, and there we go. And it is now already looking a lot different because this allows us to just overwrite the colors here. Generally, when you do a theme, you don't want to overwrite these values. So those values should ideally be for the user to customize. There's also themes in Filament that you can install as a plugin.
Mhm.
Um, and there's a bunch of them in here, such as the Shatsian theme, Nord. Um, I even got my own glassmorphic kind of
Oh,
design theme on it that can be purchased, and you can basically install a theme. We're not gonna create a package and all of that. I think we're just gonna look at how you can customize it, and then you can ultimately, if you want to, extract that into a package.
nice.
Um, but that is the very basic part of it. There is also a lot more to it. You could change it to a hex color or
Mhm.
convert to RGB and so on. So there's a bunch of options in here. You don't have to go ahead and choose something that is just predefined here. You can actually choose a lot more in here.
Quick
And
question.
with
Are they
yeah,
listed anywhere? Like, can you preview the themes, the base colors anywhere, or do you literally just? Did I see something about it's based on the Tailwind color palette?
yeah. So they are customizable and they are based on the Tailwind color palette, but obviously you can go ahead and
Just look
change
better.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
the color palette is available for V4. If you use V3 and you wanted to customize styling, slight disclaimer, there is a bit of a difference on how to do that, so I would recommend reading the docs.
Mhm.
Setting up a custom theme, as in a custom CSS file that you can modify things in, is the same, but the class names on that will be different. But it will also utilize, I think, Tailwind 3 instead of Tailwind 4. So that's an important thing to just distinguish between. The other thing you can do with custom theming is you can go ahead and have top bar and set that to false. What that goes ahead and do it is removing the top bar here.
Okay.
And you get it down here instead.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then there's the other option as well, which is top navigation,
Mhm.
which will move it to here.
Oh, nice.
So you have that as a very quick way to customize it. Um, the other thing that's important to note is that you can obviously set the brand name to something different. You could base it on your config
Mhm.
app, the name. You could also go ahead and just change this to um, admin panel, for example. You can add in a logo. You could also add in a logo for dark mode, and you can choose the height.
Nice.
So you can also do those, and those doesn't require any custom CSS file or anything like that.
I love how
Um,
this is when I set up when I like went into Filament for the first time before, and I was like, I have no idea what I was doing. I barely had to touch the docs because for the like high level stuff I did, but for these things, you can just sort of guess the method names. Um,
mm,
they're just so it's just so intuitive. It's
it
nice.
definitely is quite intuitive how it works essentially, and the thing is, it is also relatively fast. There's also one extra neat feature that I think a lot of people overlook. You can have a spa feature, which basically allows you to add in wire navigate to the links. Now,
Hmm.
that wasn't recommended early on because it broke things in LiveWire V3 when Filament 3 came out. But I think nowadays it pretty much just works. But that's
Nice.
something where, again, you can increase how it feels in performance level wise.
Hmm.
So that's the basic way you can customize your application. Um, the other things is obviously you can add in registration, which allows you to go ahead in here and add in custom registration if you pass in a class, which
Okay.
extends on the register page. So you just basically extend on the one from the package that you already use. So if you look in here, it takes in this register class and you just extend on that in a different file and you can then customize it. And you can also have password reset in here.
Hmm.
Um, there's no, I don't remember. I don't think two factor is in the stored by default, but you can install it with a package, and there's
Hmm.
email verification as well. So all of those would just make your panel a bit nicer and easier to use, and it's a really neat way to just quickly use it. You can also determine the widgets on the dashboard page, the first page you get into here,
Hmm.
but you may wish to have a custom page instead where you can customize it a bit more than just adding in the widgets. So this
Okay.
would basically just be extending on this one here, and that would allow you to customize the dashboard page. Um, and you can also customize navigation, for example, and so on. So there's a bunch of things you can do, which works quite neatly. But if we just get rid of those widgets, um, it now looks like this.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm gonna add those back in just so we see how the styling looks like.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so if we get back to custom theming, so first and foremost, you can also add in a font. That's the other thing you can do before we head in. To create a custom theme, you just say PHRs and make filament theme. This will go ahead and do a few things for you. So if we take a look, um, let's open up the sidebar as well here. In resources, CSS. Just 1 second, my computer is sometimes acting up a little bit. We get this filament one here with theme.css. It
Oh,
imports the default values, the default CSS that needs to be imported, and you will notice that even if you add something in now, it won't work fully CSS wise because you need to add in a few other things in here, and that, for example, would be adding in this into your white config file,
okay.
and that's because otherwise it won't properly um, render. So let's just go ahead in here. I'm gonna get this on to a new line. So I think it may actually do this now by default, by the looks of it, but um, yeah, before it didn't do that. And then you also need to have white theme in your panel because
Okay.
otherwise it won't properly load in. I don't think it's added. Oh, it has actually. Yeah, that's pretty neat. That you didn't used to do that. I think that's a newer feature, and then you just run build.
Nice.
Um, so that's basically how you create a custom theme. I did feel like it looked a bit different because before it would tell you to add these things in. So I was just wondering,
Even the
didn't used to
Docker
do
app,
that.
right?
Um, so yeah, basically now we have the option in here to customize the styling. So if we just quickly take a look, um, just gonna also just take a look on the live stream, see if there's anything. Yeah. So if we wanted to, for example, just have a quick test that this works, we could just say background.
Feels so weird seeing you write CSS instead of Tailwind. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I would probably, in my view, I would probably add in apply to kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
keep the consistency. But yeah, essentially, we kind of avoid that. Yeah. So
yeah.
inside here, we could, for example, customize the sidebar.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes you kind of have to inspect element to see exactly what you want to style,
Okay.
but the common hook class abbreviations are in here. So I think we do have a button. So if we have this here, we could add in a BG black just to see if we can. There we go. So now
Mhm.
that's style. But obviously now you can go ahead in here and add even more styling to it. And this is what cursor suggests. I have no idea how that's going to look, but
Try it.
and it breaks it, of course.
No breaks, yeah.
um, but yeah, so um, yeah, you can essentially go ahead in here and style it. So that's um, how I would probably recommend anyone that want to create their own theme package. Don't create a package first because it's always so awkward having to run the build, composer
Yeah.
update locally, and so on. Just have a file in here, do the majority of work in the CSS file, extract it into a package afterwards. Don't
Mhm.
start from a package because you're gonna spend so much time just composer updating everything. Um, and yeah, so you can also go ahead in here and update the coloring more. But I think before we start doing a lot of theming, because our admin panel looks pretty boring, there's nothing going on. Should we maybe add a resource in or something so we can go
Yeah,
a bit
that'd be
more
good.
in depth before we actually start looking at it in more detail? because I think it's just gonna be styling a button the whole time, and I think I,
Yeah.
I don't want to spend the whole time doing that. So we can run PHP and Filament, and you can see the commands listed.
Yeah. Okay.
So it
I've
has an
done that.
upgrade command, but what we are interested in this case is um, essentially make resource
Okay. Yeah.
that will in this case we could add a user resource because
Hmm.
I think in that case that's the only model we have. We could go by name in this case, and you can choose to generate it as read only before you even go ahead and look at it.
Can I ask you
You
what that is? Because that was one thing that really, really confused me when I didn't get what it was asking me
I think
whether
it's
I.
if you wanna not have a create or edit button, so you get
Oh,
rid
okay.
of those. And you could base it on database columns,
Hmm.
uh, or you could
Yeah.
create your own columns in here. In this
Yeah.
case, I'm just gonna go quite plainly with this resource.
Okay.
That goes ahead in this case and creates a filament folder, and in here we have a user resource.
Mm.
And this user resource has got um, the pages you see. So this is create and edit. So if I was gonna comment these out, I'm gonna go back in here. And in this case, we have now um, it should hide them here, but just need to maybe just quickly go in and run. Just gonna optimize. I think it should hide them from memory if you get rid of these. But in here we have the form and we have the
Mhm.
table.
Yeah.
So the table it used to be one large file. Now it's not. Okay, so it's not hiding them, but you can basically go ahead and hide these pages here. So um, in here you have the form, and then this will be the one you have when you want to create a new user, as an example.
Hmm.
And then you have the same for the edit, and then there's obviously the table, which is the one that you see on the main page, the list page.
Yeah.
So it's called users table. And in here we can add the column. So if you wanted to add in a text input, make name.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, edit is not defined because I ended up hiding them. So I think I just need to, because it catches it. So my browser is a bit slow. Um. So yeah, basically, getting an error here. So filament forms component. Oh yeah, text column, of course. We don't want to add in an input field in the table. In this case, we're gonna have a column.
Okay.
Because the input field is for the form. Um, so they're separate. But in this case, you have my name,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
and
That makes sense.
then you could add in email and so on. Um, and if you wanted to, you can add in a datetime as well. So to create that here in the datetime.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, this is basically where you can add in all sort of columns. You can also add in an image column, for example, to add in image. Um, but if we go back to sort of custom styling, it may be interesting to look at how we could either start a table or an input field. I think an input field is probably a bit quicker task to do. So if we take a look inside our user form and add in a text input for name, and then we go ahead and click edit. We could look at how we could customize the styling for this one.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So in this case, I believe for input fields, for forms, we have FIFO, but if we take a look inside here, I think the easiest way to do it is just use inspect element, because then that way you are certain and you have this um, container in here that gets rendered. So for the form field, you have this whole bit here,
Hmm.
and we can head into our theme, the CSS, and then here we could go ahead and add in some things. For example, I don't know what we would do styling wise. We could add in um I think what I would probably want to do in this case is, if I was unhappy with how rounded this is, you could go ahead and change that. So you could go ahead and take the text input field here and add that in,
Hmm.
be more rounded. And I'll just go ahead and actually just have that here. See how that looks. Now it's even
No.
more rounded than before. And and that's an easy way to style it, but it may be kind of a obvious thing to do is that you may want to change how rounded or the border, the background color. It's I think it's quite a uh, normal thing to wonder how do I do this, because otherwise it just feels so repetitive. If you see all those admin panels out there, filament panels are now, I think, quite recognizable in the ecosystem. I don't think it takes a lot of time to spot it, but if you add these custom styling into it, it becomes harder and harder to spot. Is this just a really well built admin panel built in something else, or is this built in Filament?
Mhm. Quick question about fields, because they are so customizable. For example, that name field that you've uh, defined within that array in PHP, from that field class, can you specifically customize styling from that? Because I know, like you were showing me bits earlier about customizing directly from the panel, changing colors and themes and stuff. Can you do it directly from there?
Um,
Or you would want
you
to
can
necessarily?
customize things such as how much space it takes up.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Okay.
um, as an example, I you can go ahead and have some few customizations. I haven't tried this hex color one, but if we change this to 00, I don't know if this is for a specific bit. I think most of it is though customizable um in the CSS. But if you
Yeah.
wanted to have a hint in here, for example, please enter your legal
Okay.
name.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, you could go in and say hint color. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
but yeah, I think most of it is basically um something you would wish to customize in the CSS.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Um, but I feel like it was more awkward to do that in V3, which is why I didn't build my theme for V3. I just built it for V4, just for
Okay.
maintainability and time consumption.
What was it like in
Um,
what was the difference between, like, why was it difficult?
so I think it added a lot more classes for memory, and I felt like it was just more awkward if we go into in here. Uh, the dedication on the docs was also a lot shorter. It was just this one page.
Okay.
Um, so you have adding in a logo, um, which could be an SVG file, fav icon, and so on. But that was basically, from my memory, I think that was everything you got. But now you obviously get um, a whole section dedicated to it, with creating a custom theme,
Nice.
the same page, and you can even look at how you could use hero icon, which is quite an interesting one. So if you wanted to change this icon before you had to actually kind of guess or look up online what the icon was called. You have to put the text in. They added in
Okay.
a helper class this time, so you can go ahead and just have in, for example, outlined user
Ah,
circle.
nice.
Um, and if I take a look now in here, it's changed. Before it was really awkward because you had to kind of, oh, is this one install? Is this
You
one
know what?
name?
The course that I just produced a course for Co-Course that used an admin panel,
Mm,
for a blog builder. So for, yeah, just a blog. And you know what? I have to admit, I did a quick Google or probably asked ChatGPT, like, how do I customize this icon in the header of this
mm.
page? And it gave me this like hero icon class, which I then just like was like, oh, I'll just put that in there. I had no idea about that class that you've just shown, so I've gone ahead and used the old way.
It Old way is what you use in V3, I believe, by default, but
Yeah,
think V4 has changed that around from
yeah,
memory. Maybe it came along later in V3, but I don't remember it then. Again,
that
you
makes
also
sense.
have the ability to do it, uh, if you wanted to, for example, in a blade component here, custom one, for
Oh,
example.
nice. Okay. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I would always just recommend using it because if the name was ever gonna change,
Mhm.
I don't think it would, but if it was gonna change, it would probably be safer for long-term compatibility to use the class.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And you can also register or replace the icons. Um,
I see. Okay, nice.
um, and here's a list of a bunch of them. There's also, again, plugins you can go ahead and look at for icon. You can there's both icon pickers, but there's also um different kind of icons you can change to. I think
Nice.
Lucid Icons is quite a popular package in the React and Vue.js world, and it's one of those that the existed package on. So yeah, there's a bunch of ways you can customize it in here, and it just has a huge list. But if you're wondering, does this icon not exist, or does it exist? You can find it in here
Perfect.
in a quick control find. And I do find AI models nowadays actually some of them don't actually realize that you can do this now because it's not trained on it. What I
What
always
happened?
just do is like copy and paste in the current resource, even if it does nothing interesting, because then it sees the style and the pattern, and I just explicitly say it's V4 if I have to use AI, because then it
Yeah,
automatically thinks, oh, this doesn't look like what I'm trained on.
yeah, yeah.
And then it
Well,
will go ahead and question itself.
I use ChatGPT to just basically, I was basically like, I am learning this. I need to build an admin panel. Can you guide me through it?
Mm,
And I would say until I specifically specified V4, it would give me a lot of V3 stuff.
mm,
Because I tend not to do stuff in editor because when I'm learning stuff, I just want to be guided through.
mm,
It's almost like going through a course just within chat, just chatting away to someone who knows what they're talking about. But
mm.
yeah, it messed up and I messed up, so at least now I know that there's a clean, nice, easy way to specify icons, which is good.
Yeah, and it's really useful because at the end of the day, if you wanted to have in um, a suffix or prefix icon, you can just go ahead and add in hero icon,
That's nice.
um, something in here.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I said get. Yeah, no,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, that's why.
Mhm.
There we go. Yeah, that makes sense because if you want to get it, that would obviously. There we go. Now we have an
Oh,
icon on the side. And
so
that's
easy.
something else to factor in when you do customized styling, because there's so many ways to configure it. Building
Hmm.
a theme for it is actually a lot of effort if
Hmm. Yeah.
you have to factor in all of those, and you have to factor in, are you using sidebar with top bar, no top bar, top navigation? so on and so on. There's all those sort of different ones. And then there's searching, which has very basic search added in.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you can easily go ahead and add in a prefix or a suffix icon. Um, and you can also go ahead in here and change the label. Um, you can go ahead and um, do specific things when you type, for example, with adding in a slug. I think what I have found the nicest way to do it is I'll just get the code for it. This is how I do it on my website. I find this the quickest way to do it is using JavaScript. So if we wanted to imagine that this user resource now was an article resource instead, um,
I'm looking forward to this because I did this recently as well, so I'm gonna compare mine mentally to yours to
I
see how
have I have
yours
done it
is.
like this in JavaScript
Okay.
because it works faster.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
one thing I noticed. It was really laggy.
and that's why I use JavaScript for it. So I basically gone ahead and said, okay, after state updated,
Mhm,
um, we go ahead and say function slugify the text, return text to string, normalize, some regex,
mhm.
and two lowercase, and then we set the
Use the
slug
Sesso, yeah.
to the
Mhm.
state. And if we go ahead and refresh now,
Nice.
it would just go ahead and do that.
One thing, one thing that I had to add in was when you have I know we're going off track to theming, but
Mm,
find this super interesting. When you have a name in there already and you want to modify the slug, but then you want to modify the name or the title again, and you don't want the slug overwritten, there was a
mm,
sort of like tiny condition I added in there to just check the sort of dirtiness of them.
mm,
Um, but that's nothing to do with like that. You could use that in JS still. But that's one thing that I had a
mm.
condition around that was
Yeah,
really important for that.
I
Um,
didn't add that in myself because I always use the title as a slug in my case
yeah,
on my
yeah, of
website.
course, yeah,
Um, but I do think if I was gonna build this for multiple users of that, I would probably have changed it around. But at the moment, it's only really me using the website.
yeah, of course.
Let's go ahead and in this case, this is how I do it across projects because I find this to be the most efficient way. It's a lot faster, and using the JavaScript just it feels overkill to send a backend request in the
Mhm.
network tab, which is essentially what you do if you don't use JavaScript. It basically sends a request in, and it feels overkill in that
Yeah,
case to
'cause
do that.
I used the live method
Mm,
to so it was like quicker, and then it ended up just being so laggy as is with Livewire if you decide to send a
mm,
request every time someone types a character. But yeah, that's interesting. That's really
mm,
interesting. If I continue to work with Filament, I'll steal that.
yeah. Well, it's definitely a useful one. And if you wanted to, for example, have a select input in here,
Hmm.
um, just adding a few things in so you can look at how to style that. Let's say we had a row. In this case, let's just say we have some options in here. We're just gonna add in a few different ones.
Hmm.
The first thing you will notice is, um, yeah, sorry, my computer's a bit slow. Well, one, the styling isn't applied here because it's a different class. The second thing you'll notice is that it's not a custom field, it's just a regular one.
Hmm.
Now, what I find really useful if I have something I know that can get bigger or where I prefer to use a custom one because I think it looks prettier. I make it searchable. And the first thing you will notice then is that it is now searchable. But if you were loading this from a query, now we are not right now, you would want to preload this so that it loads the first few values so it doesn't look empty for user
Hmm.
friendliness.
Yeah,
Unless
yeah.
you want to save on the query, and it's a very complex, very big page, I would probably recommend doing this. And this now adds more complexity to the styling again. So another thing to factor in: are you using a custom element or are you not? And those will ultimately also go ahead and determine how do you style this. So if we want to look at this class here, um, I think we need to go ahead and theme the CSS, and we can just go ahead and apply to this as well. Did I select the right one? Oh, maybe this one I actually need to select. So bunch of code going on in here. So let me just see. If I select input, that's the one it is. Still, I think we need to maybe also apply it to the other one. See if that works. But I'm not sure if I'm missing a class in here to start. But it does. There's definitely some complexities in here because I think we also may need to do the button. Just make sure that it's probably there. Am I running npm run dev? I'm just gonna check.
Be a million things that are not.
I just feel like it should be applying more roundedness here now, but doesn't seem like it is. Uh,
Wonder if it's an overflow
oh, it
hidden
could be
issue.
this one here. Maybe I'm actually not going far enough up.
Oh, there's one further up as well. Great.
It is a lot of classes in here. I'm gonna just try to see if this is the one we need to touch, or if it's the one above. It may be all the way up here actually. So, um, it may be an overflow issue. But yeah, essentially, if you wanted to do this, there's a lot of complexities to styling. It is not as there we go. That's the
Oh,
one.
wow.
Yeah, it
We
takes
got
a
there.
minute to sometimes figure out which one you need to style. Uh, but yeah, some of them are easy to style CSS wise, but some of it's a bit
Yeah.
harder. Now I think the next logical course of action would actually be to do the button, and even the button has a lot of things going on in here. Um, so if we look at it, it has all these binded in here. But I think if we just go ahead and say fi button and we apply rounded free excel, it should hopefully look a bit more aligned now.
Nice.
Won't impact these buttons up here either. So it works fine in dark mode, but yeah, we already got a bit more roundness to it. But again, it's rather a lot of factors to think about when you do this styling. If you want to build
Mhm.
some super neat, complicated theme, you need to spend a lot of time testing it,
Yeah.
disabling and enabling things for it to work. You can't just um, do it super easily because there's
I
so
have a
many
question.
variables.
Um, if so, for example, would it be easier or is it easier? And I have no idea because I haven't worked with Filament in this respect, but is there a standard theme file somewhere that you could just copy, paste over, import into your app CSS file and then just tweak it from there rather than overriding?
So
Um,
maybe you could go ahead and look in the CSS file that it provides that you import, but
mm,
it is a lot of files, I believe. Let me take a look because if we look inside Filament, there may be someone that's done something like this and I just haven't noticed. And we take a look inside.
The reason I ask is I wonder if there's like a recommended way. Is it recommended to go in and just sort of create an entire theme file from base, or is it a good idea to override just what you need to keep things clean? And I'm guessing it's the second option, but
Mm.
I'm just coming from sort of beginner territory.
I don't think there is any from memory, but I think the docs again has covered
Yeah.
a bit
And the
of it, a bit better at least than last
yeah.
time. But again, you will need to figure out which specific you need to apply to, and there's a lot of classes,
Hmm.
so it's not as quick as you may think. Um, but I don't think there's one. But maybe someone should do that. That may be a really good idea actually to just have a custom one to download on a GitHub repository.
That would be
Um,
not easier, but like I guess if you were coming, like you can pretty much jump in and you sort of know the structure of stuff.
mm,
But for someone like me, if I was going in and I was like, well, where do I, how are
mm.
these things grouped? And I know the docs provide some insight on that, but
There's also some help with the PHP Storm having the auto
okay, yeah,
completion. But bad if you use an IDE that isn't as advanced, so I don't know how it would do it in VS Code, but if you use PHP Storm at least, it
mhm,
goes ahead and provide you with
nice, that's
relevant
helpful.
classes. Now, again, that doesn't necessarily tell you which one you need to apply to round a text input field with, but at least it gives you a bit more information. And there's multiple different fields to do. I believe um, we would also have to go through and do this on um, other things such as slider toggle buttons and so on, where we have to factor in all of these different custom fields. And then obviously people can create their own custom field,
Mhm,
which is a whole different beast. In Filament
yeah,
V3, I think I used to do custom field for slogs to
okay,
just do it automatically on typing because I found that easier. And it was fun to do a quick tutorial on how to do a custom field as well. So I just decided to do that. But yeah, there's a bunch of things you can essentially customize in here.
mhm. So your theme that you have available on the marketplace, then
Mm,
I'm guessing that's a lot of work to go through almost every single one of these components, the different states that they
mm.
can have.
And you also
Uh,
get sometimes emails because people have very specific niche cases with support. I think I've had more sales on the filament theme than I have had on my website because I've done some reduced pricing, which soon I believe ends. Because I think, let me just check. If we take a look, yeah. So there's one left for 4.99, but that's why I
mm,
sold so many of them. But after that, it goes up to the higher pricing. But
okay,
essentially, what you what I had to do was look through all these classes here, and I've had some issues that I had to resolve, and there's some issues that people have had and
yeah,
ask about how to sort out. Um, but yeah, it's essentially there's things to factor in on that end. And I didn't get everything right the first time. I had to sort out some issues I just didn't think about, or some
yeah,
features in Filament I did not know existed. I think one thing I learned that exists is actually quite an interesting one, but can work really well for certain projects, I guess. Uh, you can have a strip table,
right, okay. So for
and
more than one,
that's
yeah,
something I didn't factor in, and that immediately uh, didn't work because I hadn't factored that in. And that's the thing about doing these custom themes. I think a lot of it you need to learn from when you
yeah,
talk to people, because otherwise you don't get to. do them.
How does it then work then? You have a custom theme and then maybe someone installs like a plugin. Am I right in saying that could cause some issues as well?
So if you have a custom theme and someone installs
Just a
a plugin, um,
yeah,
it depends on what you do, but generally speaking, most plugins are written well enough and not checked code-wise, quality-wise if you get it from the marketplace. So you shouldn't see that issue if you would obviously want to, if you had a theme and you had a plugin and the plugin was a custom form field selection, you would obviously have to go in and potentially update some of those.
yeah, yeah.
But if the plugin was a totally different feature, backend or something you see on the front end, it depends. But yeah, you would have to factor it in to a degree. But it comes down to a lot of different factors to know exactly what you need to do, because some of it you may not want to change. For example, I believe if we it is on the plugins page for V3. I don't know if it's gone out for V4 yet. Um, the curator is in V3, but I know it's upgraded now to V4, but it wasn't for a while. And what you see in here is that you may wish to style this differently, but I don't know if you would want to round the corners, for example, or do much here. It uses, the standard page template anyway, so that bit should be styled in your theme. But anything inside that's not a filament field, like the images, you may wish to do, but again, you could theoretically just apply IMG, apply rounded
Mhm.
if you
Yeah,
wanted to do it across every image. So it's quite easy to factor in something like this. But this is one where I probably wouldn't do much styling.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and an example of where I probably wouldn't break much. But on the other hand, if you wanted to add in something along the lines of, um, actually, there's one bit in here because when you upload the image, yeah, when you upload the image in with a field, this custom fields, you may wish to style those to be rounded or other ways around. But yeah, this is if you don't want to use Batty's own um, media library, this is
Mhm.
probably the most other common way. And um, Adam Weston has done a lot of great projects. I have personally used the curator a lot and um, find it quite useful. It's also quite well maintained. It just took a while to upgrade to, I think, V4.
Mhm. Yeah. I
But that's
saw
the other
it.
thing is if you upgrade versions, you have to think about plugins.
Yeah.
V4 to V5 has all your plugins got a V5 version. V3 to V4 is a harder upgrade. V4 to V5 is going to be easier because V5 is just Livewire 4. But
Right.
V3 to V4 wants also some small structural changes to Filament,
Sure.
such
Yeah.
as CSS classes and so on. So yeah, that's a bunch of things like that to get in. We also got a comment on the live stream. Someone says that they're going to be using that JS for the slot field.
Oh, yeah. I
When I
mean,
showed
I
it,
wouldn't I
yeah,
I'm
you feel
not
free to
surprised.
check that. It's not private code. It's not anything I'm hiding from people. I don't mind people using that code up. I originally had a very lazy way of doing it. It didn't remove commas or anything like that. It just um, was quite badly done. And I at one time just figured out, okay, yeah, I accidentally entered in the wrong URL for my SEO where it had a comma in it and or something like that. And then Google, there was something that Google wasn't very happy about with the link, so decided to go ahead and fix that so and could stop having Google complaining if I made an accident. So yeah.
It surprised me actually that they're because, I came I come from sort of using Nova a lot, Laravel Nova a lot, which I
Mm,
know is similar in some respects, but Filament has a sort of different approach. But I was really surprised at that slug feature. Not surprised that it wasn't built in, because I suppose stuff like that creates mess, too much sort of mess over time. But I was
mm,
surprised I couldn't find a plugin or like anything to do that for me. Like sort of had to do it manually.
mm.
Maybe I missed it, but I did Google, you know, how I need a slug to be automatically generated from a
I
title.
don't know
How
if
do I
I
do
had
this?
that on my website actually. Do I have an article on that? Because that's something I have wanted to talk about.
I may have even read your article. Who knows? I found a solution somewhere, which like I said earlier, I had to tweak a little bit um, to stop the slug.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay.
That's how
Cool.
I actually
Brilliant.
shared this in my article. So
Perfect.
and I would also recommend adding unique in here, which I didn't show. So that's the first way is
Hmm.
to do it client side. The second
Hmm.
way is partial rendering.
Hmm.
Um, and then the third way, so compute on uh, safe only. And that's essentially how I decided to do it. I thought it was just a thing that probably a lot of people would want to do, but there's actually an article for that. And just because we're talking about this now, I may as well just quickly bump this into the live stream chat for people to uh, find if
I'm going to go
people.
ahead and read that afterwards. I love how we veered off from theming onto just talking about slugs, but that's fine.
It's a very important thing to go ahead with. And while we're at it, just want to say that is holidays are on to the end of the year on my website. You can get a lifetime membership for £195. It's also um, got 1 month trial, and the yearly plan is only about £60. Just thought I would get that out there as well, because there's only about 2.5 weeks left before it ends. But yeah, so when it comes to building a resource essentially and styling it, it is a lot of complexity to it. So,
Hmm.
but I remember seeing, I think Dan Heron releasing V4 into beta live on stage in Lava Live London. So um, it's quite interesting to see how much changes there's been on that. And um, I think it was around that time I decided to do a custom theme for V4, and I got around to adding in that. And I think I was kind of partially also inspired by Liquid Glass from iOS, and I added it in that kind of theming, because I know some people hate it, but even if you don't personally like it yourself, you may have a client that loves it and wants it, and then you can add it in. I personally think you can do some quite neat features with it. The downside is obviously will be a little bit slower on
Hmm.
older computers, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of people nowadays will have a bit faster computer that can manage that on the browser. But there's obviously a few who may not. I don't know if there's anything else you wish to go. I mean, essentially from now on with custom styling, it is just either using the docs or inspector element to essentially go ahead and apply Tailwind to it. But um, the last option for custom theming is obviously installing a theme, and for that it's quite easy. You just need to have a custom theme creator. You could, for example, go ahead and add in the chat CN one,
Hmm.
and then you can go ahead and um, install it. Although I'm not actually sure if this is um, yeah, so it's not got the adding in the plugin, but I think you just have to add in the plugin here into the admin panel provider. Oh, okay, so it's just the color actually changes. Yes, it has a champion color palette. That's what it is.
Oh, okay. I
But
see.
normally the themes, some of them have a bit more, like the Nord one, for example, which is quite a popular one. It has a bit more to it, so you need to go ahead and install it. It will add in um, this one here. You add in into plugin,
Oh, okay.
and then you have to change the setting basically.
Mhm.
Um, so there's some plugins that install differently, and some of them have customization to it. Some of them
Mm.
don't. Depends on, I guess, how complex they've made it. So that's the last option, obviously, for custom theming, and it is an easy way sometimes to just pay for someone theme instead of having to go ahead and utilize CSS classes and that, because not everyone likes writing CSS.
I could
Their
imagine
own.
it would take weeks to build a full theme and think of every single option.
But it
Um,
depends on how complex your application is, because if you're just building for yourself,
if it
you
yourself, yeah, different.
it may not take a week. But if you're building
Yeah,
for other people or for a very big application, it could take a week, of course.
yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
But that's what it comes down to, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, theming's never easy, whatever you do, unless
Mm,
you want it to look like everything else, which obviously we don't.
mm,
Like, you don't want it to end up like the bootstrap of admin panels, do we?
Yeah, like I on my website, I think somewhere added in glassmorphic design as well to Flux UI,
Mhm.
which was a
Nice.
bit of an interesting one to try to add in, but um because I know some people may not like it, I am also working on adding in a boring mode, which removes the glassmorphic design.
Nice. Good name.
Because I think it's a bit more boring, but also something that I kind of thought about was, well, sidebar layout on a course. Do you want it on the left, right, or bottom? So you can kind of customize that. And I thought
Nice.
that would be a
Yeah.
nice one to have in because that's something that's quite useful. So I bought Flock Pro recently, so I've kind of been modifying it a bit more now to look a little bit neater. But um, yeah, I've been trying to make it more custom, and I use the Glassmorphic filament on the admin panel provider in Filament on my website as well to manage things and to take care of pretty much everything in there.
So talk me through how does that how do you save the user's preferences? Just yeah, I'm guessing database, but then how do you like apply it at the
So
level? And how do you like do you just pop that in the filament service provider how you want things to be laid out once they've chosen that option on your site?
so on a very basic level, if you head into the
Yeah.
user form, obviously these fields does not exist. So if we were just gonna go ahead and we only have the name in here. I want to modify the name.
Mhm.
There we go. That's it. It just knows it from the name field, and it finds out that it updates it there. But if I was gonna call this something else, it wouldn't know the information,
Sure, yeah.
and it wouldn't store it because
What?
it field doesn't exist. That's
Yeah.
why you have make and label, because the make actually goes ahead in here and um, gets the information using
Mhm.
Eloquent. And if you wanted to, you have the pages. Now in here for edit or create, you have different functions you can add in. So mutate data before save or fill is one thing you can do. And then in this case, you can go ahead in here and return the data,
Okay.
and you can do things before it saves. Whether it's sending a notification out, whether it's modifying the password, whether it is like if we were just gonna die dump on data
Mhm.
and refresh.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like
So
a just yeah.
You can basically do your manipulation here. So if you wanted to, I don't know, be absolutely certain that it's sorted as a supported slug,
Mhm,
you could go ahead and have that in here. Or if you wanted to um, go ahead and do something in the background, yeah, that's the same. It's essentially how I go ahead upon save when I do, for example, for the policy on my website for terms and condition policy, cookie, and privacy policy. When I change the version, I check in here. Has it
mhm.
changed? Actually, no, I do that in Observer, but you could do it in here as well. But I do it in the Observer instead. But you could do it in here as well.
Mhm.
But I do it. I use this for some other small things on the website as well when needed be to modify some quite specific things.
Yeah, I like
Um,
this approach actually because, I used to make a lot of use out of observers, in Laravel, then I found that they just got in the way of almost everything. If I was running a test, they would do some things, there was some sort of unintended side effect of something that I didn't want to happen. It's
mm,
nice that it's directly within this class, um, so you sort of know exactly where it's happening.
mm.
I like that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's also in here where you can have actions. So you have this get hit action on edit.
Mhm,
So let's say you want to have an action in here. Let's call this preview. And let's say we have a URL. Let's say you could add the root in, but we obviously don't have a root for users at the moment. So if we just said users, and we can go ahead in here with a shorthand function
mhm.
instead. I think it's called record, and then we just go ahead and say slash users, and you could open it in a new tab. Now,
Nice,
this should work. If you look down here, it opens to users slash one.
nice, yeah.
And so I'm just gonna show it up here for people who can't read that small. Um, and you could also go ahead in here and make it a bit neater because I feel like in this case I may wish to have an icon. And
Mhm.
again, we can just use the hero icon, and we could have an outlined eye. And I just closed that one down, but there we go.
Now, this is where I use the hero icon full class name without knowing that there was a class.
Mm,
Uh, and it was to do exactly what you've just done. It was to preview a blog post,
mm.
but it would use the closure to generate a signed URL to the blog post because it might not be live.
Oh yeah, of
So
course.
yeah, so if the blog post wasn't, still in sort of draft mode, the admin could still preview it with a signed URL. And
Mm,
I used an external link icon, but didn't reference the huge hero icon class. So the next time I do that, if I do, then I
mm.
know how to that's make that neater. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
and then obviously you can um change. You can actually, in relation to if you wanted to change this to be secondary in terms of styling, you
Yeah,
can go ahead and do that on
nice.
buttons. So you can do a little bit of customization. In this
Yeah,
case,
yeah.
action I think looks fine, but yeah, if you wanted to have a quick preview one, uh, you could also make it. You could use a signed URL, but you could also give the users the live URL, obviously depending on whether status is
Yeah,
active
no.
or draft. Um, if you wanted to give the admin the actual URL for when it is live, so the users doesn't get a signed one. But yeah,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, you can basically modify the header here, and the same goes for the create. You could also go into the list here. A neat thing in here, you can have a get tabs. Now, let's say we have in this case multiple users. Um, where we want to go in here. We can create multiple tabs. So we could have all users equals to, I think it is this one. Let me just check how that looks now. Yeah, that's all users tab. And then you can go
Oh,
ahead and say administrators, for example, and you could say query.
mhm.
But
Oh,
obviously, I don't feel like we have much query data to go on for the users table right now because we don't have any custom values. But if you wanted to have a articles place where you want to have an active draft or all articles, it's
mm.
a really quick way to just go ahead and modify.
Yeah, nice. I love the balance in Filament between being able to just structure these pages how you want, but then go in and style it later to sort of, how you want it to look and feel. I'd
Mm.
imagine there's no I'd imagine there's not a time where you would need to jump in and create any kind of custom pages, as in from scratch with components. Not that often because of the customization options. There are so many. Um,
Yeah, so you don't need to do it often. The times you would want to um create a custom pages if you want to do some live wire bits that may not be
sure.
possible in Filament, but you would want to create a page
Hmm.
sometimes instead of creating a um but not a custom page with its own view file or
Hmm.
with a view file that just basically loads in the fields. That may sometimes be useful because if you look at the dashboard page, for example, you may want to do that. It's a great
Yeah.
example of where you just may want to have a bit more customization, and you can do a lot in there to basically go ahead and make it look nicer.
Nice.
But yeah, I think again that's another thing to factor in if you're styling film because you have to go ahead and factor in tabs, and then you can
Yeah.
also have tabs inside your edit or
Yeah.
create,
Yeah.
and you can also have widgets on the resource page
Hmm.
along with other places.
That's one thing I tried to do. So when I was building this edit page for a blog post, I started off with tabs where I had a edit the body of the article tab, and then I wanted a preview tab where it showed almost like an iframe preview of the article that you could
Mm,
switch between. And I just found it so difficult to do because it was actually because of styling conflicts, because I wanted it to look exactly like the article would from a viewer's point of view or a reader's point of view.
mm,
And yeah, I sort of just gave up in the end because I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing with Filament. I'm probably doing something that I shouldn't be. So let's just create a preview button like you've done here
mm.
and allow us tab over in our browser instead.
I have seen
Um,
people do similar things like that before, but it's been a while.
yeah,
I haven't seen that really been done much, so I don't really. I feel like that's overcomplicating things a little bit. In
it
my
is.
opinion.
Even as I was doing it, when you're doing something and you're like, I'm trying to be clever for the sake of being clever.
Mm,
And I was doing that and I thought, no, it ended up, the solution ended up so cumbersome that I just gave up and thought, no,
yeah,
this isn't going to work. Even if I get it to work, it's just not going to, it's not going to be the greatest user experience. So let's just leave it.
yeah. I got again someone asking a question about custom styling. So I need to ask a question. It's not about custom styling. What do you think about the using filament individual components in LiveWire Starter Kit? I think um, that is fine if you want to use a component, but um, I do also feel like Flux UI has a lot of what you need. But it depends on really what you need to do. So I think that it comes down to all sort of variations on what you're trying to do on your code base. Let me see. Um, yeah, I think there's no other questions on the live stream. You got any other things you wanted to look at exploring with Filament?
You know what? We've covered when we planned this, I was like, this is going to be really daunting. And actually, I realized, like, you know, a testament to Filament, it's actually not that tricky.
Mm.
It's just time consuming. And the thought of theming Filament by classes, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be doing that anytime soon. But
It is a complex issue, like building my own theme. I don't think I would do that many times. It's gonna cost a lot of time, but I've thought about building a very simple custom theme for free
okay,
sometimes,
yeah, yeah,
like very simple, like rounding the corners a bit or changing a few small things, just to make it look a tiny bit different,
yeah,
but enough for
make,
people to want to compose a required and not just copy a CSS file.
yeah, yeah. No, that'd be good actually. I mean, it's yeah, I can't see myself. I think with like admin panels and stuff, I'm so used to. I've never built an admin panel for a client, so I'd imagine a client would want some customization. But with
Mm,
myself and Nova, for example, Nova for the Code Course website, it still doesn't have Code Course logo on there. It still says Nova.
mm.
I'm one of them people that just don't really care about how an admin panel looks as long as it works and does what I
Like
need
on
it to.
my end, for example, I don't mind showing uh my admin panel. Just gonna go ahead. Um, so I have let me show content. I have navigation here, all the articles, the
Nice.
lessons, the paths, projects, which is something I'm adding in some projects, custom ones, and then for courses, I've added in a subtable.
Hmm.
So if you wanted to go into, for example, uh, I have this advanced Filament V4 authentication. So you have demo and installation, which is
Hmm.
gonna appear if we look on here. This is the section. Then we have the other ones and the lessons. And what I've structured it as was basically being able to go in here and just make a new one
Uh-huh.
super easily with the position. You can also move them around. I'm not gonna do anything in here because
Yeah.
it is live. And you can go right here and add more lessons.
Hmm.
And then because I use mocks, I just add in the ID and the playback. I did try to do an upload component, ended up finding
Hmm.
a lot of issues with file sizes that I couldn't be bothered trying to fix. Um, so I ended up not really doing much there. But again, the duration is automatically calculated if the video is processed on mock side.
Hmm. Yeah. Nice.
Um, and it is done in Observer unsafe. So that
Hmm.
means that I can just go ahead and do it there. And then the other thing I found really annoying was having to go through the admin panel sometimes for lessons. So I decided to have the Mox ID to be editable in here.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Um, and then that was basically the way I ended up doing it because then, yeah, I don't have to go into the admin panel. And obviously, this is an admin feature. No one else has access to it except for me.
Hmm.
But um, that was essentially how I decided to structure it because I found that the easiest way for a course. And I didn't really know if there was any better ways to do it in Filament, but I thought this is the best way I can think of, and this way it also works for the code base without overcomplicating things. And
Hmm. Yeah.
It is a little bit complex, but it's not so complex that you have to spend days figuring out if I wanted to hire someone to do some extra work on it, yeah.
It's almost exactly like how courses and episodes are added on CoCourse. But obviously I use Nova.
Mm,
Um, and the way I had to get around video uploads for episodes is they're all stored in S3. And then
mm,
once they're uploaded there and attached to an episode, so you basically just go and upload them at your own pace. I don't know if um, there's a plugin for Nova called like File Manager or something.
mm,
So you basically just chuck all the video files up there, and then within the individual episodes, you then select the video file. So I don't go and upload them to the um, I don't go ahead and
mm,
upload them to the video provider first. I upload them to S3.
yeah.
One of them goes over to the video provider. One of them goes over to be encoded for download once they're attached to an episode, and then obviously the duration comes in via a webhook
I
or whatever.
I just go on Mock's website, upload the video.
Yeah,
It will then ask the details. It automatically transcribes it, and I find it to do an
yeah,
okay job. I think it uses Whisper.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
because
Video
I
is
did,
hard.
if I was gonna, at one point, so with recording videos, I found using Tela, actually to be the easiest way to do it. So I have all my videos recorded using this software. I
Oh,
use different for live stream, but essentially I can go ahead here, for example, for one of the shows I have upcoming, I can edit. I can see the transcript generated.
nice.
Uh, in this case, as you can see, it's decided to
Oh,
misinterpret my accent, but sometimes it actually does a better job than other auto transcription software. You can remove silences and everything else as well in here that may be needed, and you can add multiple clips. You
nice.
can customize the layout and so on. I found this to be the quickest and the easiest way to do it. I did think OBS also sometimes does a good job, but I think this almost just works a little bit better because it speeds things up. Sometimes I've decided, I think I'm sometimes against using this for automatically cutting the video, and I use Recut instead.
Yeah, pre-cut. Yeah, yeah,
But I do think sometimes it does an okay job. Sometimes I end up going away from this though. Yes,
yeah.
I kind of switch between those two depending on time. But you can also change the border in here.
Mhm.
You can have an animated background or color or photo.
Nice.
And you can also change how it loads in here. But that's how I find uploading and doing videos is a lot easier using this because it's just so quick to just record and then add it
Yeah.
in.
Mhm.
I once tried to do on my iPhone instead and use log format and add in color grading on that. And I may do that if I end up having the money for an editor at some point. But at the moment, I don't have the time to go ahead and color grade a webcam.
Yeah.
That's the smallest part of the video for yeah. But
Well, I love the fact that we've gone from filament theming to slug generation back to filament. Now we're talking about how to run a screencast
mm,
business. Um, so lots to learn here.
I actually, for people who don't know, started watching videos on. I think when you had it as PHP Academy back in the days, I used to watch your videos when I was a teenager, learning how
Wow.
to code in PHP. So it's actually from Alex I learned to code by before, um, over 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I mean, PHP Academy I'm 36 now, and I started that when I was about 18 or 19.
Mm,
So it's been a long time. Wow, that's like the majority of my life teaching people to
mm.
code. But I'm
I
glad I can help.
technically started my videos in 2017, 8 years ago, but I only did like one or two in a few
Yeah,
years, and then ended up having a break again, doing one in 2020 because I didn't have a good place to live in under COVID.
Mhm.
I couldn't really record easily, so I didn't really get to around to it because I moved a few times.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then suddenly I had the opportunity to do it more often, and 23 I started doing it pretty regularly. I've had some smaller breaks, but been doing it almost consistently since 23.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the hardest part about this, about video is just having a quiet place to record. I know with AI now, I mean, I could create a course with my window open and there'd be, stuff going on outside, and as soon as I put it through post processing, that all disappears.
Mm,
But back in the day, it was like I had to have absolute silence. When I was in central London, that was impossible. I then lived next to a school, and that was impossible. There was just noise constantly. And I
mm,
remember building like a huge foam panel that fit in my window that I would just stuff into my window. Um, but yeah, I mean, now it's so much easier with AI, and I use like a Final Cut Pro plugin to do that because I edit in Final Cut Pro.
mm.
Uh,
Yeah, I think I got the idea from how to do it because I tried a few different things. I got the idea from using DX as well from your website when I was
mhm,
looking at what sort of thing to use because audio quality was always an issue to start with. So at first I had just um, a Blue Yeti, and when I moved over to this, I had some issues with the volume, and I
mhm,
ended up having to get a cloud lift as well. But
mhm. Yeah,
um, yeah, I just use a cloud lifter now plus DX Revive, and I think that does most of the job, except for my advent calendar series where I'm having a good friend of mine who has done some Christmas music for
mhm,
this Marvel advent calendar I do, and she takes care of the audio there, and I just added in. I edit the video, but she adds in the audio, takes care of any sort of issue with volume and so on.
mhm.
So outside of that, I always use DX Revive now for my videos. I find that to be the most useful way. I found
Yeah,
it. o- I find sometimes I've tried to set up an environment when I'm go abroad as well and go on holiday to do videos. I also find that a bit awkward. Not impossible because you just need a small tripod and your a stand for your microphone, but it's still a
yeah.
little bit awkward.
So you record videos when you're on holiday abroad?
I have done it sometimes when I visit my family, not
Okay.
on holiday,
I
but
was
when I
gonna say
visit
not
my
like you're
family,
relaxing.
um, because sometimes, I feel like I don't get enough videos done and I want to kind of keep
Sure.
up. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
um, I don't, um, I take a video, may take equipment with me if I'm going away for a week anywhere,
Mm.
potentially, if
Yeah.
something insane drops and something insane happens. Because I feel like sometimes that does happen. Like if I was gonna go ahead and do a bit more talking about tech stuff, if some super cool new filament thing happened, or I know it's a big week in Labo or filament or somewhere else
Yeah.
where there's a lot of releases coming out, I may decide, okay, yeah, I don't have everything early access. I need to just be ready to potentially live stream on the go. I may do that. But generally, I wouldn't do it on a holiday, but I don't I really normally just visit my family actually on that end. I don't really go abroad as much as I spend the time home because I travel between Denmark and Britain when I go on holiday up to my partner's place, which is some hours away, and my partner's parents' place, which is some hours away from where we live. So on that end as well, it's a bit awkward. So I don't really personally go abroad more. I just spend it at home. Um, Sometimes I do travel and visit places, but it's mostly just visiting family. Spend a
Mhm.
lot more of my youth seeing other countries. So
Yeah. For the first time in, a long time, I went abroad. I was in Crete, and I didn't take my laptop for the first time in about 10 years. I had no Coco's website go down. If it goes down, what am I going to do? I was like, well, I'll just figure it out from my phone. But I had a really relaxing time because I didn't have my laptop with me, and there
Mm,
was no there was no like nothing to do apart from relax. Um, but yeah, no, what you said about live streaming on the go, that sounds good because that reminds me of when I used to go to a lot of conferences. Sort of this was years ago.
mm,
When technology wasn't as like streaming technology wasn't as good, but we'd have people there that were
mm.
basically live streaming announcements and stuff like that. So that sounds really good.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I saw Nuno, who has created Pest PHP and also works for the Lava team
Mhm.
in Denmark when I was at Lava Live Denmark this summer. He was live streaming
Yeah.
outside. Um, in it was warm enough to be outside. Just seeing him in his t-shirt live streaming with someone else from the conference, having like an extra display and that going live. Um, I haven't seen anyone else live stream directly from a conference before, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I
Um, but yeah, I saw him live stream that. That was quite um, interesting to see. But I don't think I would necessarily do it from a live stream. But I have thought about it from conference. But I have thought about it. I have thought maybe I should buy a wireless microphone to
Mhm.
even just go ahead and interview people at conferences and talk to them.
Yeah, that's a good
Uh,
idea. Yeah.
but every time I've said I wanted to do it, I've never got myself around to buying the audio equipment, so I don't really have anything useful. I don't wanna go around with my chunky microphone
And that's
here to
about it,
interview.
your interface and
Mm. But I have the right camera for it now and all that. It's just more, yeah, it's awkward with not having the right microphone. So I have thought about it, and that would also allow me to live stream at a conference if I wanted to.
yeah, that sounds good. Well, this has been incredibly interesting, considering I haven't used Filament before and I've learned a lot,
Mm.
and it's been really good to talk about other things as well.
Yeah,
So thank you.
no problem. I think